Meanwhile, Manchester United, have we been talking, breaking records, haven't they, with the number of chances they've conceded. In fact, only one other team in the history of the Premier League have let 87 shots against them over 3 consecutive games. That was Burnley back in 2016. 87 attempts. But this is what Ten Hag had to say about those 3 matches yesterday. Again, we give a certain win out of our hands by making, let's say, not a very clever mistake there. Like on Thursday and like Saturday, and we lose 7 points in 1 week where we should have had 9 points. Gab was very passionate about that quote on the latest edition of the Gab and Jules podcast.
If I were a United fan, I couldn't deal with somebody
I don't think they can deal.
saying something like, I don't know if, like, you know, being positive and upbeat doesn't mean that you have to turn into Pinocchio. So when you say something like, well, we dropped, oh, I'm disappointed because in this week we dropped 7 points from winning positions. But you can clearly see we're a young team. You can clearly see how we're getting better. So the 7 points you dropped from winning positions, obviously they were winning this game. The turnaround, Chelsea's turnaround on Thursday night.
And against Brentford.
And the Brentford game, where they got completely battered by a team that's, 2 points above the relegation zone?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, you just stop it at, we're disappointed that we dropped points. Don't talk about how your team is playing better, because guess what? People are watching these games.
There's something funny about Gab getting angry. I love it. Shaka, is he trying to persuade the owners that things aren't as bad as they look on the pitch and trying to kind of give this optimistic outlook?
I think Erik ten Hag is auditioning for his job next season.
But how naive does he think they are?
But that is a question only Erik ten Hag can answer, or maybe only the owners can answer. But I just do not get what Erik ten Hag is saying. And listen, we've all been there, where you play badly and somehow you scrape a win, and you just get on the bus and you get out of the stadium as quickly as you possibly can. It happens. But that's not a recipe. That's not what you set out to do. You take it when it happens and you work to make sure it doesn't. To somehow package this as we have been great and haven't gotten what we deserved is just the most bizarre thing. And I feel like I sit here almost weekly after an Erik ten Hag press conference and say that was just bizarre. And then next week is going to be something even more. And just when you think you've hit peak Ten Hag, he comes and says something like this. And I do not know how to explain it. Come out and say, listen, we haven't been great, but we could have gotten more than we did. And leave it at that. We've all been there. You take it and you run. Don't try to sell anybody this nonsense.
Mario, obviously, you followed Ten Hag when he was in Holland. Are you surprised that he's coming out and saying these sort of things?
I'm not surprised because, look, what Shaka said, yeah, that's clear, you understand? But we all know, you understand, Shaka, you know, when we as football terms, regardless of what we think, you're not always bring it out to the open, right? You try to protect and you hide a little bit. Maybe because it's so obvious, and it's very obvious for us because we were footballers. But if we, like for some of the people, or he thinks at least, they might think slightly different. You understand? And it's not that because I'm saying like, oh, we are smarter than them. It's just the experience that we went through. Being in the dressing room, I'm sure, you cannot tell me that. I can tell you literally, look, I was in the stadium when he played Chelsea. It took him 10 minutes and he lost his mind. He was going crazy because the middle of the park, like I already explained before, it looked like a wide gap. They could not get hold of the ball. The second ball, they were so late. They could not pick, and he was screaming, screaming, screaming. Okay, eventually they get back in the game. He speaks a little bit to Casemiro. And then later on, they open up. They play a little bit of the counterattack. And Chelsea gave them a gift, you understand? And Liverpool gave them a gift. Because when they get a gift, they answer really well. Because the goal, of course, we cannot doubt that. You know, what Fernandes did was incredible. But we just say is that you cannot play football, I always say that. You cannot play football and always think that you're going to win when you are not in charge. In charge, I'm talking about dropping off and waiting for them to make a mistake and then pounce on it. This is the football that Man United is playing right now, and this is the same football that Chelsea is playing right now. Why I'm saying that? Because when I saw those two going against each other, now I saw Liverpool. Liverpool is a team that, regardless if they play bad, they still try to dictate the game. And I think that is Ten Hag's biggest problem. He's not used to that. He's not used to being part of a team that cannot dictate.
But he had a plan, didn't he, Mario, when he was at Ajax? A plan that obviously worked, a plan that got him great success, a plan that inevitably got him the Manchester United job. Why are we seeing no semblance of any sort of plan from him, considering he's been at Manchester United for long enough now to implement one?
Because the thing is, what a lot of, I think a lot of people from my country make is a mistake sometimes. Sometimes they rave about certain players, you understand, in the sense of like, oh, he's a very good player. Then when they come to England, they are the worst. And the ones who achieved it and did really well, they don't always highlight those names. When it comes to Ten Hag, I had the belief, don't get me wrong, you understand, because he had the intelligence, then he got a lot of injuries. But then some of the players didn't turn up. How long did it took us to see Anthony run and work that hard that I saw against Liverpool? It almost took me like more than a season, you understand? To see a kid run that much and really like, I see him tackling, I'm seeing fighting, I'm seeing getting upset. Stuff like what Anthony's doing now is because he realized now, if I want to make it in this country, I better move different than I did at Ajax. Because at Ajax, he did not have to do that. Because you always have the ball and you chill. And that's the same what Ten Hag thought of him. He thought he's going to do the same. And then he woke up, because then you get different defenders. Guys who make you know they're not worried about the skill that you have. You have the speed and the skill, but they're going to stop you. And I think Ten Hag sometimes has to understand the game is way different than we play in Holland. And it took him too long to understand that. That's the only thing that I, point a finger at him, is that it took you too long to understand that it's a totally different game. Away from that, okay, we can talk about injuries, but that's football, man. Everybody has that.
Frank, how would you feel if you're in that Manchester United dressing room at the moment, hearing things like that from your manager?
Well, it can be both. It can be in two ways. In a way that you can say, well, he tried to protect us, tried to make people believing on the impossible explanation, because nobody believes it. Even the guy who knows nothing about football won't believe that. That's what Mr. Ten Hag have to understand. and after we can say, well, I guess the guy lost it. He doesn't know what to find as an excuse. Because when you are horrendous, when you're not good, when you don't play as a team, that you're about to collapse. And when you hear that, you say, well, we're not the only one very bad. Even the coach doesn't know what to do anymore. That's what it is, and that's what we feel. He should sometimes, maybe be angry at the players and say, it's not what I want. I want something more. I want, like Mario explained, I want Anthony to do that 10 times like he did against Liverpool, because that's some professional. He proved today that what he did before was not enough. And the same for Rashford, the same for every guy. You cannot put everybody. I mean, I found Maguire doing his game against Liverpool. The young Guambala, the French guy, was also very good. But you have some others, you wonder. Even Fernandes against Liverpool was very good, running, tackling, getting the ball back in the box, in his own box against Salah. Courageous. I don't see that every game. That's where Mr. Ten Hag have to point the weaknesses of his team.